think there's a fairly fine line to draw between, well, what we deem those quirky Japanese video games to the really niche Japanese video games. I think the best example of the former would probably have to be like Katamari Damacy. Like, this game's legacy and why it's pretty well known, honestly, is mostly rooted in its absurd charm, and more importantly, the fact that it's Japanese absurd charm. Or how about something like Tulip, which, yeah, at first was a pretty niche game, but I feel like it's actually slowly crept up in popularity as of late. Obviously more in the cult following sense, but for similar reasons to Katamari, I feel, if you want to boil it down that way. And I also think that can be attributed to the fact that Tulip and Katamari Damacy were both localized roughly around the time they released on their original platform, PlayStation 2. Just the fact that it's officially available in English, you know, is what I think contributes most to why people gravitate to some of these old, bizarre games. But then you got like the other side of the spectrum, while still on the same topic. You got your Racing Lagoons, your Lack of Loves, and even your Kero Kero Karopi no Daiboken 2s, all of which, while having perfectly accessible English fan translations, they still remain in utter obscurity. It can also be the same thing turned around, don't get me wrong. Some Japanese games that may never really leave their native language will still catch on with the interwebs, LSD Dream Emulator being a very good example of that. I think it's clear that, while it won't exactly dictate a game's popularity, releasing overseas for many of these titles will have a part in introducing them to a new audience, of course. And I think one of the other best examples of that would have to be with NanaOn-Sha, with the likes of Parappa the Rapper and Vibribbon. I think everyone has had to at least heard of these two, or at least Parappa. Like, man, these games got huge legacies, I feel like. At the very least, they've got very dedicated and pretty sizable cult followings that kinda rings uncommon with such experimental games like these, especially with Vibribbon. In general, NanaOn-Sha has always stood out to me as definitely a developer who had some really cool-ass games under their belt. Mostly in their early years though, like you even had shit like Toon and Glue. Man, all of these seriously ring on some of the more esoteric side in terms of their visual styles and use of hardware too. And hey, going forward in their history, I mean, they did make that Major Majestic March game for Wii. Yeah, you can't bring them up without bringing up this, with art done by Rodney Greenblatt. Dude, what an iconic art style he's got, seriously. Masaya Matsuura, this is the man behind most of these games and NanaOn-Sha as a whole, composing the soundtracks for them and being the sole designer. He's definitely someone I have quite a bit of respect for, especially if you go into his history. He was originally part of his band, Psy S. I don't know a lot about it honestly, but I do know that between Psy S and NanaOn-Sha, he dabbled in some other cool stuff. Dude, did you know he made this, what's described as a multimedia project for the Macintosh CD-ROM called The 7 Colors? Man, it is wicked interesting looking. It's not even considered a game as far as I'm aware. You can tell this dude definitely had, and probably still has, some serious artistic sensibility up his sleeve. Seriously cool. And he was eventually able to translate that into his very influential games that would kinda shape the general genre of music video game. You know, I find it very interesting that if you look at the list of games they worked on in their earliest years, you come across the standouts, obviously. But just tightly knit, yet among the sea of those hits, you'll find this curious title known as Rhyme Rider Kerorican. Designed by Matsuura himself and released on December 6th in the year that was 2000, it never came outside of Japan, so already that definitely shrouded it in obscurity for years to come. I've known about this little game for a while. Well, more so I've actually always known it simply exists. It wasn't until a couple months back that it really started to catch my eye, and I mean really did, because already at the forefront, this game is wicked interesting looking. First of all, that cover! It really stands out. You have this main character wearing this Kimono Mimi style space frog helmet of sorts, dominating the box art. Looking into the game itself, it has this extremely colorful look to it all. It's wavy, it grabs your attention, it's out of this world. Knowing that it was made by NanaOn-Sha too, it definitely fits in line with their usual style they'd employ into making games feel all the more unique in that department. But the real kicker of it all, it released for the WonderSwan Color, and this has got to be the most intriguing part of the equation, dude. So when I first tried to learn more about this game, I didn't know anything about the WonderSwan in general. To be fair, I still kinda don't know what it is, but honestly, you can't really talk about Rhyme Rider without discussing the console it was made for. It's honestly tied to it. So like before, from the outside of it, the WonderSwan read to me as one weird-ass console, yet entirely fucking dope when you get down to it. First of all, the style of it, the look of it, this might be one of my favorite little handhelds I've ever seen, purely down to aesthetics. It definitely kinda appeals to that late 90s, early 2000s look, as basic as I can put it. It's almost like if Sega made a handheld in the Dreamcast era, with all the Dreamcast vibes crammed into the hardware and shell. That translucent plastic is also wicked too, it's so cool! And plus, WonderSwan? That is also one of the most unique names I've heard for anything. Yet it sticks with you, it's endlessly fucking sick. I think if you've heard of the WonderSwan before, you might at least know it for being conceptualized and developed by the late Gunpei Yokoi. He was quite the figure in Nintendo's history. To say he was pivotal to Nintendo's success in the video game handheld market in mostly the 80s would kinda be an understatement. He made the Game & Watch, the Game Boy, and also literally invented the D-pad, which is very important to note, let me tell you. This guy was definitely deeply influential to the nature of video games as a whole. In 1996, he left Nintendo shortly after the failure of the Virtual Boy, after his 31-year history with the company. It's worth noting that he never stated his reasons for leaving was because of the Virtual Boy, it was simply amid the whole debacle. He more so wanted to form his own company, Koto Laboratory, where he went on to develop the WonderSwan with Bandai. They were already established as quite the prolific toy manufacturer and already dabbled in video game related things, but also with the worldwide phenomenon that was Tamagotchi. Despite all of this though, Yokoi unfortunately never got to see the console launch in 1999. Just a few years prior, he tragically passed away in a car accident in 1997. It's really sad to look back on, for sure, but you know, I kinda like to see it more so as like, it's pretty fucking amazing his legacy was able to live on, and was even actively relevant posthumously with the WonderSwan. He undeniably left quite the lasting mark on the video game industry as a whole, and honestly, to be able to leave this one last little handheld device he made with us, even if it never came outside of Japan, it's still really amazing. I know I kinda just briefed the history of this whole thing in maybe not the most detailed way, but his story is truly one worth looking more into, one delving more research and time in. Of course, not only as a way of honoring his legacy, but also to just learn more about his very influential creations and ideology. Never released outside of Japan though. Let's pivot back and talk a little bit about that. That is extremely rare for an entire video game console, to say the least. As far as I'm aware, there was never any confirmed reason why this was the case, though it's said it might have had to do with the overcrowded handheld game market that was already present in Western territories. Even still, the WonderSwan family of systems, if you will, consisting of the WonderSwan OG, Color, and the Swan Crystal, was very notable, mostly for their unconventional button layout as it seems. 2 D-pads on the left side? Well, rather what looks like 2 D-pads. I feel like they would more so act like 2 sets of face buttons. Still, overall, this makes for one funky looking little thing if I've ever seen one. This was more so a design choice to accommodate for the different orientations you can play games in. Horizontal or vertical were the main ones, let's say, and you best believe there were lots of games that made use of this in really weird but cool as hell ways. Sort of ahead of its time too, if you think about it. Like, at least with Nintendo, they wouldn't really adopt this whole different orientations thing as much until the DS in 2004 and onward. You know, this is a really fascinating, one cool fuck of a console to look into. Like, I think you can kind of compare it to the Dreamcast in a way, where it's definitely got a legacy of its own for just being fairly unique and ahead of its time. Well, maybe not to the lengths of Sega's console, but I think the WonderSwan will always be remembered, despite being such an unknown console, for having very novel ideas and a library that was undeniably unique, especially for the time. Dude, there's so many weird, cool games games on this thing, dude. It'd take me forever to go into them all. Well, actually, I don't really know about WonderSwan games. I'd love to do more research on them whenever I get the chance. But hey, I'm sure you've heard of that one Klonoa game that was randomly on here. Apparently there was a fucking Evangelion game on here. Why does that not really surprise me? What the hell? There's just a ton to talk about here, and it's hella impressive too, because there were only, what, 200 or so games made for the WonderSwan, including all models. Yet this is one of those ultra rare consoles where, despite the really small set of games on display, it has a boatload of unique shit to talk about nonetheless. Fairly recently, I had found this video made by SmudgeBap that delved deeper into the WonderSwan. They do a way better job at discussing its general history and games in depth. Go give it a look if you're interested, it's a pretty cool video. So yeah, quite a bit of trivia and lowdown aside, that brings me back to Rhyme Rider Kerorican. I had to get all the WonderSwan shit out of the way because this game made use of the hardware, specifically the color, in a very specific but dope-ass way, let me tell ya. See, the game wasn't exactly horizontally oriented, nor was it vertical. It was diagonally oriented. Okay, this is fucking utterly strange to me still. When I first learned about this, I was kinda taken aback. Like, I know it's not mind-blowing per se, but just think of what this allowed on a gameplay front. Still not mind-blowing, but like, playing the game at this honestly super specific angle, like we're talking roughly 30 degrees, give or take, you can see the button layout you've got now in this configuration could be used to the game's benefit. And yeah, hopefully you see why this video has been presented the way it has, huh? I don't know, I thought it would be kind of fun to do this. Like, this is literally a tilted aspect ratio we're displaying in. And like, it's not ideal exactly for viewing purposes, but this is sick and weird and different, and I couldn't just not take this opportunity to have the video look like this, you know? Let's get to it, Red. I'll be emulating the game, as you can see. I obviously don't got a WonderSwan Color or Swan Crystal on me, let alone even a way to capture from original hardware. Is it even possible to do that? Like, at least in any easily accessible and commercial manner that's not restricted to a personalized modification on the console? Yeah, instead, I'll be using Mason, or Meson. I've looked into it slightly. It's apparently listed as among the best and most accurate emulators for WonderSwan, at least on Emulator Wiki here. I'm not sure if it really matters. I mean, yeah, even still, I do wish I had an actual WonderSwan of some kind to at least try it out and get my thoughts on how it actually feels to play Rhyme Rider on it. I would have loved to do that, but my dude, my guy, I don't feel like spending the money on this stuff. Here on the M4m4 channel, we are broke and resort to the inevitable concept that is piracy, okay? I've wanted to make a video on this game for quite a while, let's say that. Well, it was ever since I first played it, which was back in like October of 2024, so it was not that long ago, but hey, I think that definitely says a lot about how this game actually hooked my interest and stayed on my mind for several weeks. Seriously, everything surrounding it is cool, man. And I'm actually pretty surprised that, well, at least at the time of me writing, no one has really taken the time to make a video on this game, on the video sharing platform that is YouTube otherwise. Like, it's a NanaOn-Sha game too. You'd think through word of mouth a lot more people will know about it, but hey, that's like more reason for me to make this. I've kind of been in a rush to get this video out there, being honest. I know I don't have a very big audience, but hopefully if you're as interested as I am, or close to, you get something out of this, you know? Bandai, the ones who manufactured the Swan. This is a simple but pretty slick startup, by the way, and there's actually a neat thing you can do with it. By holding start while powering the system on, you can access this peculiar menu, where you can register your name, your birthday, and your blood type. How many people actually know their own blood type? Just curious. You know, if you really think about it, this whole ability to be able to, like, enter your name and stuff into the system BIOS like this is also ahead of its time, at least for a handheld system. I can't think of any contemporaries that let you enter your own name into the console itself, at least. I mean, we didn't really see this kind of customization get normalized until the 7th generation, with the likes of the PSP and DS. Albeit primitive, it's still sick to see it done here. Okay, yeah, I had to play that out. Dude, quite the stylish fucking way to open a little game like this. I mean, seriously. It's so defiant too, and just radiates the good vibes that'll come along. Well, theoretically. And the music too, it is distorted and compressed to bits, but it is groovy as all hell. I love it. Now the second option here is this little how to play cutscene you can watch, much like VibRibbon actually, but I'ma save this for my own explanation as we hop into the game. Don't worry about the other two menus here, they ain't important, and so we can just move right along into the stages. Well, I guess first I'll kinda discuss the story. As you can see here with these intro cutscenes, everything is in Japanese. As you might have guessed, there's no English translation out there. It's very obscure after all. But yeah, this is obviously a game where you don't need it translated to get the general gist. There's hardly any dialogue or text too, surprisingly enough. You play as Kerorican. Well, Kerorican is rather more of a persona for this girl. When she doesn't have her costume on, she's Hiromi. I was really confused as to how the game's packaging depicted this. I at first thought this character on the left, seen here, was like the person you were trying to save, like Kerorican is trying to save this character from the evil, but no, it's just her transformation taking shape. Which, speaking of, I love this design so much. It's insanely stylish, especially futuristic, and obviously the whole Kero side of it is adorably charming as hell. I love it so much. Now the story here has to do with this pig character, acting as the villain. I actually have no idea what his name is, being honest. As you can see in these stage intro cutscenes, he sends his minions out into these levels that Kerorican has to take a nice casual little stroll through, while kicking them, galloping, and hopping all over them in time with the music. So in that sense, they act more like obstacles. These guys consist of armadillos, these things with the spinning hands and big lips, cones. It's very eccentric and abstract these designs are, let's say that. You'll find more of them introduced with each level you play too. So yeah, as you can see, it's a rhythm game, although I'm putting that in the loosest of terms. I actually kind of would prefer to call this a general music video game, much like how Wikipedia calls it. That's for good reasons I'll eventually get to. But first we gotta talk about the controls. Each enemy you come across corresponds to a different button on the WonderSwan you gotta press to get over them, or even a combination of two buttons with some of the later enemies. Yeah, this is pretty interesting, like this is definitely worth discussion. The control scheme, and more importantly how it ties into the tilted angle you would usually play this game at on an original WonderSwan Color system. Very much like VibRibbon, you kinda have to memorize all the buttons and button combos. Heed this picture of the manual for reference. All of the face button islands are used in some way. It's weirdly one of those WonderSwan games where playing at the oblique angle actually may not benefit so much, to the point where it's not really necessary to play it like this. I don't doubt that many kids who played this back in the day just played it in the stock horizontal layout. But to respect the sheer artistic intent of Rhyme Rider Kerorican, playing at the roughly 30-degree angle is entirely ideal. It's insane, all the text, UI, graphics, even the credits, it's all displayed obliquely to compensate. And this is just so cool, dude. This is unlike any other game I've seen. Like, even if this is a pretty moot gimmick just tapped onto the experience, I find the sheer novelty in it to be endlessly cool. Like, yeah, even if this whole diagonal shit doesn't add too much to the gameplay, it at least makes Rhyme Rider stand out a whole bunch, and I gotta commend the hell out of NanaOn-Sha for taking that leap. Just the fact that you'd technically be playing with this tilted aspect ratio, unlike any other handheld game, let alone any other WonderSwan game, where the pixels don't exactly align parallel with each other that way. It's wicked sick, I gotta say. I found out that it's actually almost exactly negative 26.55 degrees you had to hold the system at to have all the graphics be displayed in their correct orientation. Yeah, using the power of wonderful editing software HitFilm to measure that. But anywho, how is it playing this game on not a WonderSwan Color? Well, playing it on emulator isn't bad, it's mostly the controls you gotta tinker out. It can be hard to imagine playing on PC with this very unique control setup the WonderSwan had, trying to map it to a conventional modern controller. Like, two D-pads? Like, how the hell does that work? but let it be known, I think I figured this out a long time ago too. So when pertaining to the main gameplay itself, it really only uses 3 main buttons, the A or B button, and the Y and X buttons. As you can see, these 3 will correspond to the 3 main types of enemies you encounter. And with the Y and X face buttons, you could press any of them when talking about the original system. It didn't matter. So yeah, you're only really dealing with 3 main buttons, not counting menu navigation mind you, where it would be recommended to map B as well, just to be able to back out of certain screens. Anyways, here is the official overview of how I mapped everything onto my PS5 controller. It should be worth noting I mapped Y and X to the bumpers as well, because there is one enemy that's like a shampoo bottle that requires you to press Y and X together. And obviously doing that on one D-pad is just... yeah, figuring this out was interesting when I first played, I'll say that. So again, here's how I mapped it on my controller, and here's how it looks in Mason too. It might look overwhelming, but just pause right here if you need to take time to understand and copy the button layout for your own playthrough, unless you don't want to. This was surprisingly a lot easier to figure out. Like, it may seem daunting at first, what with how emulators can be finicky sometimes, and let it be known that, yeah, obviously this specific mapping won't work for every other WonderSwan game I can imagine. With how this console operated, I feel like it's going to be a game-by-game basis you're working with for configuring controls. Important to note though that I do recommend using a controller like the DualSense, specifically where the D-pad and face buttons are right across from each other. You know, something like any DualShock will work, but also even the SNES controller would be a suitable option, but not like an Xbox controller as an example. Man, is that interesting though. This is yet another console where the button layout is just so utterly tied to a bunch of its games, it's practically required to play with the original controller to get the most intended and, well, best experience? Looking at you, N64. All in all, the control scheme here is some undeniably funky ass shit, I can't lie, and I really do love it if you couldn't already tell. Like, it is just wacky and really adds to the flavor of this game, and it's very punk-like style it's got going on. Even if it's messy or not done in the most congruent way, it's like that idea of toying with the hardware itself to get a different, unique experience, even if it's minute, like, it's still sick to see. I'm sure you can see why I want to actually hold the physical WonderSwan for myself and play Rhyme Rider like this. Like, playing on emulator, yeah, it's cool and more than playable in my opinion, but that original experience has got to be unmatched. Alright, so, you know, while the control scheme is very unique, the gameplay itself is very bare bones, obviously. It's very self-explanatory, yet undeniably similar in its simplicity to VibRibbon, which might have caught your eye. It isn't one-to-one, though, cause you know how in that game, if you messed up on an obstacle, you were still able to roll along. Not the case in Rhyme Rider, because every time you mess up here, it sends you back a few steps to try again. And it does this over and over, forcing you to make every input perfect, essentially. I'm very mixed on this. To put it bluntly, I think this makes it way more needlessly stressful. Like, having to constantly re-listen to that little part in the song you screwed up on too. Like, genuinely, it does get fucking grating with how much that part will loop and loop. And it's just so frustrating, the fact that you're stuck on this one little thing. Like, you have to overcome every obstacle flawlessly. It's just so much more strict. Like, I get it's here for added challenge, hence why I said I'm mixed on it, but I honestly think it's unbalanced. Cause let's discuss the whole rhythm game side of it all, cause let's be real here, this game is like borderline nonsensical when it comes to sticking to the beat, hence why I call it more of a music video game. The enemy timing feels insanely rigid and offbeat most of the time. It doesn't help that it plays these whack-ass sound effects too that definitely mess up and get in the way of the actual song you're hearing. Like, damn, you thought VibRibbon was unclear in this regard? Like, you thought it was bizarre and unforgiving with how some of these crevices and loop-de-loops just weren't really on beat? Yeah, if you felt that way with that game, you are not gonna dig Rhyme Rider Kerorican, I feel. This game is tough. It's actually quite a bit more frustrating than an actual fair challenge, mind you. And, like, that's not a good thing. Here's the thing, I'm a firm believer when I say I think NanaOn-Sha's contemporaries, like Parappa, Yeah, the original Parappa can also be unforgiving in its timing, but trust me, I will genuinely defend the gameplay for it any day. I think it actually sort of qualifies for a rhythm game, you know? Lack of a better explanation. And like with Vibribbon, while not exactly a rhythm game by modern technicality, it's pretty forgiving, I'd say. Like, honestly, that game is fairly easy in my opinion. But Rhyme Rider can just fuck off. It's gonna kick your ass your first time around. But like, again, the timing is just too ambiguous. Part of it is the lack of any real visual cues, since, you know, auditory cues from the music are already essentially non-existent right out of the gate. It's not like you can't get used to it though, because trust me, when I first played this game, it was genuinely fucking rough. I had quite the difficult time, much like anyone else who would try this game out, but you know, over time I did get a general feel for it. I got better, but no. I'm sorry, dude, like, even after all that time I put into it, I still think the gameplay is just too fucking janky to feel completely right, like at least for half of the time. Sometimes I might be on a fucking roll and will be able to fly right through these huge strings of obstacles in one fell swoop perfectly, because well, the game basically forces you, right? But then there's other times where I'll stop at this hilarious dead end on this tiny ass armadillo. Like, are you serious? Look at this. This is just ridiculous. Like, why can't I just get the timing down? I'm genuinely losing my mind because it's so vague and the music keeps looping over and over. It's just so annoying. And fuck it all. And trust me, it's very much worth clarifying that it's the timing for these guys that really get in the way, not the button combinations you gotta pull off. While they can trip you out and it does make the game overall a bit harder, it doesn't provide most of the annoyance on display. Like, there is a setting you can change to have it so you only gotta press one button for every enemy. It might improve your focus during these levels, but it does not fix the glaring timing issue. It's still a pretty big problem with this game. Plus, it's also even more worth noting that adding to this frustration, I feel, the level's enemies are generated procedurally, at least in a primitive sense. Essentially, the order of enemies you come across are random each time you play the same stage, which is pretty cool. It kind of adds a bit of replay value in that aspect. And also serving as yet another similarity to Vibribbon, except that game honestly made cooler use of it with how it procedurally generated obstacles with the whole CD thing. I know the WonderSwan didn't have CD support, but still. I do think this whole inherent randomness is kinda to this game's detriment, sadly. Like, it contributes to the frustration. Like, in the later stages especially, they do not hand these little candies out very much, that are meant to heal your health in the bottom left corner here. Well, at least it feels that way, cause sometimes I'll feel like I got my ass fucking handed to me, and it kinda felt unfair, because I wasn't given any healing items on the way. But then this other time I played the same stage, it's like, they toss them out like candy! Haha, yeah, it's literal haha. But like, the fact that these candies are also affected by the randomization is slightly irritating. At least this whole concept doesn't make the levels feel absolutely rigid in its difficulty and design, cause that'd be a whole nother can of worms. But even still, you gotta realize, the way it was implemented here and programmed, it introduces some new qualms for me. But hey, let it be known, those times where you do feel like you're genuinely getting better and better at the game, they still exist. And they're pretty rewarding, I'd say. Again, it feels really good to just ham your way through these long strings of obstacles. I don't like how fragile you sometimes feel, and how fucking straight up unfair it might seem. But hey, it can sometimes feel rewarding. I don't know, other than all of that, the gameplay is really not all that special when you get down to it. It's undeniably simple in every sense of the word. Not a bad thing per se. Like, I do like what they had going on on the outside of it, the whole oblique orientation this game had you employing, and the button layout that came with that. Sick in concept at least, but the way it was all executed, literally, just how it all works basically, I think it's pretty flawed. I know it's maybe a ton to expect much of a super functioning game, especially from a tiny handheld like this, but I mean, it's really jank, and I do feel like it being an old handheld game had something to do with its jank anyway. I don't know. While there is a lot to criticize with the gameplay, this game is actually incredibly fucking short. Dude, like, you thought Vibribbon was short? Well, it is. But like, Rhyme Rider Kerorican only has 4 levels. That's it. Granted, it's gonna take you some incessant retries to get them all taken care of, but this is literally the shortest game I may have ever played in my life. Maybe not, maybe Vipriben takes that title, but like, in terms of how much there is to do here, this is definitely up there, in the runner-ups. It's pretty bewildering, but not a complaint I necessarily have. I mean, even still though, when you beat the 4th and final level, it's technically not over, because in order to reach the credits, you gotta replay all the levels again, as indicated by the blue crown you see beside them when you do. They're harder, they've got more obstacles. I do find it neat that the earlier levels actually make use of all the enemies this time around with their own sound effects. It's all in all pretty hard, like especially that second stage, it can actually go suck 7 dicks, dude. I'm kinda mixed on the idea of replaying these levels to even see the ending and credits in any semblance though. Like, it seems kinda unnecessary, but then again, this is still a very, very short game regardless, so like, I don't entirely mind it. It's kind of fun playing these on a much higher difficulty, though if I'm being honest, the 4th level does not feel any different when replaying it here. Like dude, it was already such a huge difficulty spike on that first playthrough, like god damn. Doesn't help that it feels like it goes on forever? Great. And after that, well, you can also replay the levels again to get a red crown marked beside it now. I really have no clue what this means though, like the levels weren't any harder I think. I don't know, I'm probably mistaken. This game is pretty unknown. Now that we're done with that side, I really wanted to dedicate a whole section to talking about the general style of it all with Rhyme Rider Kerorican, a more positive light to shed on, cause it is super cool in that regard, and is much of the reason why I get such a good kick out of this game. Okay, so first of all, visual-wise, this is a pretty sick looking game. It's got this really slick, wavy 2000s, kinda Y2K era futuristic look to it all. It's zany with its line work and equally swirly-durly, plus especially colorful. This game definitely screams WonderSwan Color, if you know what I mean. And man, I just can't help but adore how it all looks. Of course, by today's modern TVs and monitors, playing this game on an emulator definitely makes it look more garish in hindsight. Like, even though Mason has the toggle for emulating the LCD colors on by default to compensate, I guess the best way to describe it all is that it looks cool as a standalone thing, something you're just observing, you know? But like, as you're playing, yeah, it can definitely become an eyesore. I'll get to that. But yeah, like, this game's art style is sick! Dude, I love it. I genuinely think it's one of the most unique looking NanaOn-Sha games by far. It's very much in line with something akin to Planet Daub, like with that whole psychedelic Y2K visual style that I just cannot get quite enough of. Like, I entirely eat up this shit now. Like, dude, Kerorican also has a ship, Daub has a ship, it's the same fucking thing! I kinda like to think of Rhyme Rider as being Daub's little sister game at that point, or maybe Pointy Poin's sibling game. Pick your poison. And again, I love Kerorican's design so much. The overall promo art and material and design work that went into the packaging specifically is also pretty fucking cool. I love the fonts, it's ridiculously unique with its curvature and shape. Okay, I gotta mention this. Man, when I first discovered this, I was really blown away. But like the flap seen on the front of the box, the way it works is that the flap itself has Kerorican with her helmet on, but without the flap, it's just Hiromi. And dude, it is just sick how it works to display that, like she's transforming on the box itself. This is just wacky as hell, but so cool to me. Like, is this how all WonderSwan games are packaged? What the hell? I'd definitely love to own this game physically too, I'll tell you that much. And oh man, we have to talk about the music, dude. This is the one part of this video I've really been anticipating discussing. So this is a music-focused game after all, and wow, it is interesting to say the least. First of all, WonderSwan audio is cranked the hell out. Jesus, it is actually insane to hear all the music back, especially with headphones. But that aside, like, the songs themselves, particularly the ones for all the stages, I really do dig them a whole heck of a lot. They actually sample quite a bit, from what I assume is from some funky 90s sound library, you know, like how a lot of other older games did back then. In fact, a lot of the samples actually come from Tune and Glue, as it turns out, which is pretty interesting. They all include these very wicked, strange vocals. Oh man, I love the one for the second stage, specifically how it opens up. Like, listen. Fun fact, that is actually what it's saying. You can actually go find the raw sample for yourself to confirm. The rest of the stages have such cool songs too, man. While I'm not too big on the 4th levels though, like, I honestly find it annoying with its loops. It probably has to do with the immense compression too. The 3rd level song is my favorite, on the other hand. That opening melody is just, it really sticks with you, you know? And the 1st level's track is all groovy as hell, of course carried over from the title screen. Even if all the songs mostly loop over a bunch of times and very well might get repetitive, everything about it has an incredible amount of pure spunk and character, dude. Like, couple that with all the unique sounds from the enemies. You know, it's actually pretty impressive how advanced the sound in general is. For being crammed into such limited hardware like the WonderSwan Color with its clearly limited audio capabilities. Like, dude, it's pushing it to say the least, and I think combined with the general style this game emanates, and the very unique audio compression that this console offered, this is undeniably a game with sound that I've never heard quite like before. It's amazing. Though touching on that, it is unfortunate that it's kinda hard to listen back to, again. Like going back to what I said earlier, this definitely goes same with the visuals. Man, I sadly gotta be honest. When I first played this game a few months back, I was actually getting genuine headaches while playing, just because of the harsh, grating audio and graphics. I definitely don't recommend playing it in very long sessions. Like, take frequent breaks as needed, and make sure you feel well enough to play too. Still, it's very interesting the fucking relationship I've got with this game's aesthetic, because while I absolutely adore the fuck out of it all, it's actually hard to even experience when put into practice, like on all fronts too. This game is mind-bending, literally. It's like a cornucopia in its ability to be grating, in the music, the visuals, and even how it feels super bitter to even play this game. Like, god, what an interesting thing, where like everything is just that disorienting, right? Literally too, Jesus Christ. Alright, now when it comes to this topic, I want to keep it brief, but basically I just want to say I really do wish the music for Rhyme Rider was properly ripped, in any capacity that at least compiles all of the songs for the game. Like, it's why I've chosen to mostly play the footage's audio as the background music for most of this, also to just better illustrate how the game plays as well. Still, it's pretty disappointing you can't find the soundtrack to this game anywhere online, let alone on YouTube. I know it's a bit more to expect out of a very niche title such as this, but like, you do have this one upload that compiled a lot of the raw samples for the game, all taken from Tune In Glue if I had to guess. Plus we have the first stage's song reconstructed with those samples, which is actually fairly cool. But again, I'd actually honestly rather have that awful yet cool as hell WonderSwan compression permeating even the most basic yet complete rip of this game's soundtrack. And well, I'll try to keep this section brief, but a while ago I actually did do what I call a very amateur rip of Rhyme Rider Kerorican on my M4 channel. Unlisted though, cause, well, I don't want people to find this and think this is a professional rip or anything, cause it clearly isn't. The way I figured out how to even do this is, well, put it simply, most of the work can be attributed to this person right here, known as Daniel Kahn. They've actually made ROM hacks for Rhyme Rider, which is insanely wild, I know, but hey, they seem to have keen interest in this game, and seem to be somewhat knowledgeable on at least a little bit of the inner workings of it, so that's why I contacted them. They helped me figure out how to disable all the obstacles in the game by literally changing just a couple bytes in the ROM file with a hex editor. Seriously, it was that simple. And yeah, I recorded all the stage music through Mason, then uploaded it. While I probably can't just drop the modified ROM file I have for download, I can at least relay the instructions they told me if you want to do this yourself. I'll put it in the description too if you're interested in maybe doing a better job than me. Again, I didn't even rip the songs, I just recorded the audio. I've been told actually that M4m4 has better WonderSwan audio and that I should have recorded from there, but honestly, I don't really feel like redoing this because I kinda wanna hopefully leave this in the hands of an actual professional, you know? Basically just putting this as a slight hint to a call of action. I'll put a link to the amateur rip I did in the description nonetheless though. And yeah, that's about it for Rhyme Rider Kerorican. Overall, this is a really sick little game. It's obviously extraordinarily short, but you see there's obviously a multitude of reasons why I love it so much to bits, right? I mean, in every sense of the word, this game's got style, like no fucking other. It's immensely unique, far ahead of its time, even purely just in how it took creative advantage of the hardware alone. And like, again, for being in NanaOn-Sha's early library of games among their most well-known titles, for being in Matsuura's repertoire too, it's very much a shame no one talks about it. Like, this has gotta be the most obscure game I've covered on this channel, by far, and hopefully with this video, I at least got you interested via me sharing what it's all about. If you want to play it, assuming you don't have a WonderSwan Color or later, which I'm gonna go ahead and say you probably don't, playing on emulator is probably the best option, so like Mason or something. It is worth noting though that Mason had some audio issues. It's weird, like I noticed there was this pervasive screech to the audio compression, and like it's even weirder because the longer I played this game for, the more I noticed there was a diminish in quality from it. I have no idea whether this is a hardware accurate thing or not. I feel like it's not. I mean, even at best, the audio for this game is not going to sound all that great by today's standards, so... I also noticed some, like, graphical bugs with the sprites. Like, you can check it out here with the slowed down footage. Again, I don't know if this is hardware accurate. If you're at all concerned with that, you can try Eris or M4m4 as alternatives. Again, the reason I picked Mason was because it seemed to be, well, maybe not the most accurate, but one of the more accurate WonderSwan emulators. Though Eris has this really strange issue where the game runs at a slow frame rate if your monitor is not set to 75 Hz. I know, it's a weird hurdle you gotta jump over for that. I think it has to do with the WonderSwan's actual display itself also being 75 Hz or something. Again, really weird. This is not an issue with Mason or M4m4, which works fine, although you might be driven away with how unintuitive configuring its settings work. Again, M4m4 actually has better quality audio than Mason, though I did notice the title screen music kinda didn't sync correctly with the intro music that came before, like if you listen closely. But anyways, that's all for that. I'll go ahead and close the lid on the whole emulator spiel I usually put at the end of these videos. Yeah, thank you for watching, seriously. I picked this as a video topic just because it's obviously a really short game. I knew I could get maybe a shorter video done on it, but you see the length, that idea's kind of fallen through. I really do like the idea of having shorter videos to work on though. Again, like, I really want to make more of these as we go down the road. Probably 20 to 30 minutes tops we're talking. Yeah, I remember having a lot of fun making videos like Tomato Adventure and Doshin the Giant. Like, I really want to do more games I've never played before that look interesting and make videos and share my thoughts about them. While Rhyme Rider Kerorican was a game I was already more than familiar with, I want to jump into something I'm not, such as Tale of the Sun. Who knows if that will be my next one, because, you know, shit always changes, right? We'll see. Anyways, thank you for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye-bye.